Stampers, this is Lisa with Queen Bee Creations, and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. And today I'm here to show you how I made a little something on this card. Monday I had gone Facebook Live and we made this adorable little card. It's got a magnetic closure to it. And on the front, it's got this adorable little doggy, and that doggy is actually cut out of the designer series paper. So I can do that with dies, but I also thought I would show you how we can do it with the Brother Scan and Cut machine, since several of you have asked. So I'm going to move you down to my desk, and I'm going to show you, here is the suite that we're playing with. And Stampin' Up! Has what they call suites, which means that for one item number you can buy the bundle, which is the stamp set and the dies, the DSP, the trim, and the little trinkets that go with it. And it's just an adorable set, and you can see here they've used several of these ones are stamped, this is cut out of the designer series paper. There's just so many things that you can do with it, even things that are non-card related. So what comes in that suite is the Pampered Pets Cling Stamp Set and the Pets dies. Now this little die right here will cut out this dog on the designer series paper. It also comes with designer series paper that has cats. Now I looked and looked, and there are two dies in here, and they do coordinate with the two cats in the stamp set, but I couldn't find them on the designer series paper. So that's where my Brother Scan and Cut is going to come in really handy. And if I'm going to make a lot of these cards, the Brother Scan and Cut is the way to go. Now don't get me wrong, I use my Big Shot all the time, and I always buy all of my dies, because if I'm only making a one of something, it is so much faster the other way. But with the Brother Scan and Cut, I can do one thing and cut out this entire sheet in one pass. And I'm here today to show you how we do that. Over here on my wall, I have my mats. And I'm going to pull an older mat that's not quite as sticky. You can see I punched holes in the top of mine because I have hooks on the wall, so they're nice and handy right there. And they always have this acetate that will cover up the front, keeping your adhesive really sticky. Now this is an older mat that's not really sticky because the designer paper is thinner than the normal cardstock, and so I don't want it to stick so hard that it's difficult to pull it off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just push it down, because like I said, it's not very sticky, so I want to make sure I am sticking, and it's all mounted on the mat. Now you'll notice the mat has these black lines around it. You can't cover those up, because that is part of what the machine uses to know where they're cutting. This is my Brother Scan and Cut machine. I have the Brother 350M, and I'm just going to power it on. Let's see if I can lean it back a little so you guys can see it. It's got an easel on the back here, as you can see, and it holds the little stylus. There we go. That you can see. Okay, so as I turned on the machine, all I did was I hit power. Then I'm going to open up the front. This is the little dust cover that protects everything from getting all dusty. And then I'm going to take my mat and I'm going to load it into the machine, into the little grooves, and I'm going to hit this right here, which means Advance Mat. It's going to warn me the carriage is going to move. That's fine, I understand. Okay. Did. Now you have the option of cutting out a pattern where they have a lot of pre-cut designs in there, circles and squares and scallops and all sorts of shapes that you can go ahead and cut out, and you can choose the size. We'll go over that later. But for today, what I want to do is I want to be able to scan, and I want to do a direct cut, which means I want it to cut out of the same piece of paper that we're scanning, and I'm going to do it right here at the machine without bringing it into the software. I am doing it in color mode. You can go into the settings if you wish, and you can choose black and white or color. And then the little button lights up. This is where I can hit start. And it's going to scan the mat. Okay, now if I only had a small portion of the mat covered with pattern, I would shrink it down. But since it is the whole 12 by 12, I want to say fit the whole thing. And I'm going to say okay. And now it's going to decide where it thinks it should cut. Okay, so this is what the machine came up with on its own based on just a 5-color pick. Now I think I want things a little more detailed than they are, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to up the colors and have it try again. Okay, now it's done it again. I'm a little happier with that. I also want to show you that I do have the blade in here, and mine's actually turned up quite high because this is an older blade. There's a way you can go through and you can test it and have it just kind of cut through the paper. But I've got mine all set up to where I think it needs to be, and then it just pops into this right here. And then I'm going to say okay. And then I want to tell it that I want to put a border around the outside of each one, because when I cut with my die cuts, I get a little bit of a border around it. So I want the same thing from my scan and cut machine. So then it's going to show you that I put a 0.04 border around it. I'm going to hit OK. It tells me some of it is out of the affected area and will not be cut. I realize that because some of it goes off the edge of the paper. In here, what I can do is I can choose this little item down here that will allow me to go through one by one and delete them. See, that little dog up there is missing the top of his head, and it's not really picking it up right. So I'm going to say, okay, delete. That dog is all there. I'm happy with that one. We can delete that little thing. So I'm just deleting these little things that are not a whole dog. And so I'm going to work my way through and just arrow around and delete all of those little tiny things that I don't want it to cut. I have been using the arrows to bump around and select the things I want to delete. But there's also the option of using the stylus, and you can come over here to where you know there's one you want to delete and highlight it and then push delete. Because I know these are incomplete dogs in the corners. Okay, now I think I'm happy with what it has selected. Those are all the ones I wanted to cut out. Now, if I wanted to, I could use the test and I could have it cut in the corner, just a little piece of either a square, a triangle, or a circle to tell me if my blade is the right depth. And you can choose the size you want this little sample to be and make some changes to it. But I'm going to go ahead and say test. And it's going to put that little thing in the corner. See the little, I don't know if you can see the little tiny triangle in the corner up here. That's going to be the sample cut. And then I'm going to say okay. Apologize for the glare you're getting. Okay, it tells me it's going to take approximately 6 minutes to cut. Okay, now it again thinks there's a little something outside the patterned area. I'm not really sure what that is, but we'll find out as it tries to cut. But now my little green light is lit up and I'm going to say start. Okay, now it came across and it just cut a little triangle in the corner here. Now I don't want to move my mat out of the machine because that might change the placement of it, but I want to go ahead and check and make sure that it did indeed cut all the way through the material and I'm happy with the thickness of it. That's just your little test. And it was okay. So since I'm okay with it, I'm going to say start and it's going to finish cutting the rest of it. Okay, so the machine has finished doing all of its cutting and it let me know. So I'm going to say okay. And now I'm done with this. So all I need to do now is push this unload button. It tells me it's going to move the carriage. Keep my fingers away from that. And it unloads. I can push this out of the way and I can show you how I can just lift up on a corner and show you how it cut out all of those dogs. Now obviously there's a couple that it missed. I might have deleted those by accident thinking they ran off the edge. And then there was my little test cut in the corner. So there's my test cut. And this is the one I missed, and luckily I have a die for that. And then there's this one. But for the most part, I got a whole lot of dogs cut out really quickly, really simply. Again, I would use my dies if it was just one or two and I had a die for it. But if there's something I really want to cut out and I dislike fussy cutting immensely, then I would come to the scan and cut machine and let it know that I wanted to cut out all of these dogs, and it would do it for me. How cool is that? Okay, so now that I've cut out my pile of dogs, I've gone ahead and loaded up my designer series paper with the cats. And again, I'm going to bring back in my machine and I'll show you how we go about this again. I'm going to scan with a direct cut. I'm using just the machine, not the software. I'm doing it in color. I'll load my mat and tell it to go ahead and scan. And I'm pulling it towards me because I want to make sure that my mat doesn't go back and hit the wall. So there you can see that I'm, framing the entire image. It's going to go ahead and recognize it. Okay, so it has completed. Now it's missing some of the back on the cat that had a little more white, and so I'm going to try to have it detect those colors by upping the colors because it's a very light tan against the white, and I want to make sure it picks it up. So I'm going to up the colors to 15 and try it again. Okay, so it's still not picking that up quite right, and that's kind of why I wanted to try this piece of paper, because again, let me unload this. It's going to get rid of everything, but in this mat you can see where there's a little bit of a gap and it's looking for a solid line. So one of the things you can do is you can go in with a little pencil and you can just complete that line. This line in her back, this line by his ear, and once it has a solid color all the way around it, it's going to detect the whole thing. Okay, so as you can see on the screen here, it did do a better job. I had taken the mat over to my desk and I used a pencil to just complete the lines that looked like they were not solid so that it would trace all the way around the outside of each cat. I also don't really need these little balls of yarn, and so I'm going to tell it to ignore object size, and I'm going to tell it that anything, let's see, smaller than 1/4 of an inch I don't need. So that should eliminate those things. So then it just, now all those little balls are not selected. Again, I'm going to bump up the colors here. It takes a little bit of playing around. I think that's why I still like my dies quite a bit. But the machine is pretty fabulous. Okay, so now I'm ready to continue. And I'm going to go ahead and put the border around it again. That looks a whole lot better already. And now I'm okay. So it's going to process. Again, it realizes some of the cats are popping off the page. That's okay. That's why I'm going to come in here and I'm going to select those ones that are off the page and tell it to delete them. Okay, so now I have it to the point where it's only the full cats that are selected, and I'm done selecting the ones to delete. So I'm going to hit OK. Tell it that I want them to cut out. It will process. And then all I have to do is hit start. Okay, so it's done cutting out all of our cats. Let's see how we did. Now again, I'm using an older mat, so it's not very sticky. It's fairly easy for me to pick things up, but I wanted to show you these little tools are fabulous for getting things off of the sticky. You would just kind of spatula underneath and help lift them off. They work great with vinyl because this will also cut vinyl. And letters that have like a center in the middle, like an E or an O, that's what the little pick is for. It's called weeding, and it's so you can pull that little part out. So I'm very gently just pulling this off, and I'm left with all my beautiful cats. Now I understand some of you may have found that a little bit frustrating as we went through the process of trying to get these cut out and how it didn't quite scan them because of the likeness and color. And I did go over it with pencil, and so after I'm done, I'm going to have to go back and erase those little lines. But I didn't have to do that with the dogs, and so maybe it's just a matter of picking the right designer series paper. Like these toucans, this is a retired paper, but this would cut out fantastic because it's such a dark, bold pattern on a light pattern. Now I don't want all that confetti, so obviously I'm going to want to ignore object size and bump it up to, you know, maybe 1/4 of an inch so it doesn't, or 1/3 of an inch so it doesn't pick those up. But it would perfectly cut out all those toucans. I have done these birds. This worked beautifully. Again, it's a nice dark solid surface all the way around on a white background. Super easy. Now this one I don't think would cut well at all, and that's because this dog is such a light color that he's very similar to the background, and so the machine's not going to be able to recognize him. Now I can go through and I can cut out these darker ones just fine, but I don't want you to get frustrated and wonder why your machine doesn't work if it can't differentiate on these colors that are so close together. So just something to think about. Okay, so thank you for joining me today. I hope you found today's tutorial useful and that now you know a little more about the Brothers Scan and Cut. If you're interested in buying a machine of your own, I'm going to leave a link down in the description, and that's an affiliate link that where Amazon will give me a little thank you because I referred you over there. It doesn't cost you anything extra, but it does help me out a lot. So again, I appreciate you working with me, and I hope you're all subscribed and you will come back for more tips and tricks with Queen Bee Creations. Thanks for joining me. Bye.